If you didn't do so well on your last residency in-training exam, then this is the video for you. I'm going to show you how to score up to the 95th percentile with minimal effort and studying, and I'm going to share with you some of the tips and strategies that I use in order to score high.
State the nature of your medical emergency.
For me personally, I've always been a pretty good exam taker, but I firmly believe that anybody, if you have the correct growth mindset, can also become a good exam taker and also score really well on the in-training exam. The biggest thing that you have to balance is that it has to be something that can fit in with your schedule, because residency takes up a lot of your time already, so you need a way to study that does not take up a ton of your time. So here's a look at my internal medicine in-training exam report. As you can see, I scored 82% correct, which was 95th percentile for my PGY level, and I did not use any question banks or practice questions at all in order to do this. So here are my tips for doing well on your in-training exam. The first thing is that there is a ton of learning that happens every day in the hospital. Sometimes it's structured, which is obviously always the best because that happens so rarely that when it does happen, it's like a gold mine. But other things, when you learn short pearls on rounds, I will always write it on the back of my patient list, keep track of it, and then store it in kind of a long-term storage area so I can study it later. So for example, when my attending tells me something like cephalosporins are associated with encephalopathy, I'll write that down and then put it in OneNote for me to turn into an Anki card later. There's so many of these learning opportunities in the hospital, and if you don't write it down, it's just gonna kind of fly over you and only like certain pieces will stick. But if you actually make a concerted effort to actually write it down on your patient list and then convert it to something where you can reference it later, you will retain a far greater amount of that knowledge than you would otherwise. So don't be passive in letting those pearls just see if they can stick or not. Just make an active effort to record that information, and you'll find that you'll remember it a lot better. And step 2 of the strategy really revolves around a continual use of Anki. And I know what you're thinking, how am I going to be doing Anki in residency? Well, the thing is, with the correct use of Anki, it's all about long-term retention. And if you have watched my videos on Anki before, then you know I'm all about the long-term retention. And the longer that you do these cards, the further and further the intervals will be spread out. And that's the whole strength of Anki. I have something like 14,000 cards in my deck at this point, or maybe 15,000. Many of them from step 1, from step 2, and I only see them once every 5 years at this point. So when I'm doing my Anki cards, I really only get about 40 to 50 cards a day, which is very, very manageable, only takes about 10 minutes a day. And the strength of doing this is this continual and consistent review of information is what really will make your in-training exams so much easier by the time it rolls around. So I highly, highly recommend and really strongly believe in the power of using Anki, even as a resident. I know, especially if you're any med students watching this video, I would continue using Anki. Don't throw away those old cards. The strength really is when you do Anki for years on years, and that's where you're really going to reap the biggest benefits. All right, so we've gone through the first 2 steps of my strategy. Write down pearls on rounds, and then in the hospital, and make Anki cards with that long-term data. And then 3, the biggest thing is whenever you're doing a question bank, you always want to make an Anki card for questions that you get wrong, as long as there's some learning point. Like you didn't just get it wrong because you read the question wrong or something, but if there was something you actually learned, you need to make a concerted and active effort to try and ingrain that information in your brain, basically. I haven't even started doing any question banks for the internal medicine boards like MixApp or UWorld, but I've done UWorld for step 3, I've done UWorld for step 2, UWorld for step 1, done all of those question banks, and all the questions that I've ever gotten wrong are essentially turned into Anki cards, and I see them once every year or 2 years, and it helps me remember so many key details I would have forgotten otherwise. If you are somebody who didn't do so well on your in-training exam, I would recommend starting a question bank early, probably at this point right now, and starting that process of making Anki cards with every question that you get wrong. And sometimes even when you get questions right, when you read the answers, you learn something new. It's always good to make a quick Anki card about it so you can retain it for future reference. Those are my quick tips for improving your in-training exam results and performance. I know it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea to be doing Anki in medical school or in residency, but the truth is you have to make a little bit of an effort to actively retain all this information. And it's really a minimal amount if you think about it. It just adds up over every day of you consistently doing the same thing over and over. That's when your results really compound. That's why I strongly recommend Anki and continuing to do daily reviews. That's the best thing that you can do. It's going to make you a better doctor. Now, I'm not saying in-training exams will make you a great doctor, because obviously multiple choice questions are a completely different thing compared to real life medicine and taking care of patients. So even though I scored 95% on this exam, I feel like I still have so much more to do in order to become like a good doctor. But doing well on these exams, learning this information and retaining it is just one component of making yourself a better doctor. So I really think you should take an active effort, try out some of these strategies and tips. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I hope this video was useful for you. I hope next year when the in-training exam rolls around, you're going to be able to skyrocket and surpass your performance by leaps and bounds. And if you want to learn more about Anki, click this video right here. It's my guide about how to do Anki, how to set up your settings, and I'll see you in that one.